Welcome everyone. I'm Nancy Kinder. I'm part of the Connect London team. I'd love you to introduce yourselves on the chat so we know who's on the call. The other co-hosts are Serena and Michelle. They're going to speak in a moment, so I'll let them introduce themselves. What we try and aim with every CMX is that you connect to one awesome person, that you find something that's really actionable that you can implement today, and that you can come away advocating community management. There's over 60 chapters all over the world. You can join them. I can see Jeffrey, is just about to join. He runs the Houston one. And John Carney is part of the KCN. Yeah, I should probably explain. I'm a host on the CMX, and I'm also with Michael. We run the KCN, which is the Knowledge and Community Network. And we both run free events every month where you can listen and learn about everything to do with knowledge and communities. There are lots of previous webinars that have been recorded. So this time, because it's sort of the end of the year, it was made sense to sort of team the two together. And you're going to hear from a mixture of the guys this afternoon. But if you want to look back, there's loads of great webinars already recorded. With Gigi, we did one on creating collaborative webinars. Darren did one on introducing mental health to online communities. And there's loads. Judy, again, with KM in projects as well. So lots of great resources, all available and recorded for free, should you need them. So the KCN's main goal is that you don't struggle alone. Both of us, Michael and I, have been in organisations when we're the only one focusing on these sorts of roles and responsibilities, and it can feel a little bit isolating. So you've got a great group here, both in CMX and KCN, where you can connect with peers, ask for help, and learn and evolve together. We will record it, and we will share any slides that we share with the rest of the group. With the KCN, it's on the group page, and with CMX on the Slack channel, which I think Michelle's going to share the link to. But you've got our contact details. If you need anything at any time, do just ask. So what we thought we'd start with is a bit of a poll, get to know who's here and how you're feeling today. So hopefully now on your screens, you'll see a question about how has your community been doing this year? Has it been sleeping? Has it been growing? Maybe it's even exploded. Please answer the question that best reflects how your community is doing. And then second, how have you been doing? Are you exhausted? Are you feeling a bit fed up? Or you're really happy and proud on how how the work has panned out this year? Give us a flavour, and that will help us get to... I was muted there. I don't know how it happened. Okay, I'll give you a couple more seconds to...
If you can't see it, I do apologise. It's only normally on the Zoom app that it works. So if you're on maybe an iPad or when you just web browser, you might not be able to see the poll.
You can put it in the chat if you want to. I can read you the answers, but how is your community doing? You can just give a word that best describes, and then how have you been doing? And we'd love to know. Right, I'm going to close the poll and we can have a look. So, how has your community been doing? The most popular answer is growing, and that's fantastic. And there's lots in active, busy, and exploded as well. So that's fantastic. No, none of them have been sleeping, which is probably why we're so tired. How have we been doing? Oh, we're content. That's the majority there.
Interesting.
That you can see that they're content, and a balance between happy and proud as well. So. Very positive group this afternoon. It's the Christmas hats, Darren, isn't it? We brought that positivity.
We knew that, Nancy. We knew that would happen.
Right. Thank you for answering that. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to stop sharing that, and then I'm going to invite Serena to go first. As I say, we're going to each take a couple of minutes, and from our perspective, sort of share what's worked for us, the highs, the lows, and what we're looking ahead to. While we're doing that, maybe have a think from your perspective, so that when you go into the breakout groups, you'll meet a smaller group and you can talk about those experiences with that group. Okay, is everyone clear? Great, thank you. Right, over to you, Serena, for the first reflections.
Thanks, Nancy. Great to see everybody here. I can see everybody on screen. That's fantastic. Lovely to see you all here today. I'm Serena. I'm one of the co-hosts for CMX London, and I also lead the online community team at Alzheimer Society, which is a non-profit in the UK. We're a 24/7 peer support service. So that's our aim. We're a space for self-expression, reducing social isolation and signposting to reliable information. And so we've got a small team, about 5 employees and 12 remote volunteers in different time zones. And our online community hit 75,000 members recently, which is about the same as the capacity for Manchester United's football stadium. So yeah, let me walk you into my world, the five minutes update on my lows, highs and looking forwards from 2020. So there was a pandemic, wasn't there? And I run a health community, so that was interesting. So yeah, so it was pretty bizarre, and yeah, we've been through a lot. I feel like I've aged, but yeah, we launched a new coronavirus forum on Talking Point, which is the community I manage, back in March, just because there were so many conversations going on about the pandemic and about COVID-19. Within days, this was the 3rd most visited forum on the community, so pretty big. The first big challenge we faced, like many health communities, was the threat of misinformation. A lot of things going around. You've probably seen stuff on social around vaccines and the virus. It doesn't help when presidents are saying things either. But anyway, with the support of our trained employees and volunteers, we were able to ensure that no misinformation or myths were circulated. We put a digital literacy program in place. And yeah, so we stepped up and made sure that we couldn't, we didn't allow misinformation at all. We also saw a huge wave, as these waves we've been talking about. We saw that on Talking Point as well. We hit about a 550% increase of people joining at one point, which did feel like, yeah, pretty epic. The first 6 weeks of the UK lockdown, we saw a 230% increase in usage. So yeah, the second challenge that we faced was the sheer number of people needing support. So we did struggle to cope with the influx at one point, and we actually approached a handful of community members who then stepped in to help us with the role of welcoming and supporting. And 2 of those helpers have now joined our volunteer team permanently. Outside of what I've just explained, we've also faced personal challenges. Somebody on the team got coronavirus, someone else had surgery, and some of us have experienced bereavement as well. So on top of trying to run a huge service. In terms of the highs, so some glimmers of hope there. We did manage to facilitate some wellbeing discussions. So it gave carers and people affected by dementia a chance to talk about how they were feeling. And those have been viewed thousands of times. We've also been able to feed into work that was informing the Department of Culture, Media and Sport around loneliness. We've been able to share insights with corporate partners around the realities of dementia. We've supplied evidence and managed to secure a funding bid of over £500,000 from the UK Department of Health and Social Care. We supported many other funding bids. In fact, I can't tell you about a funding bid that we've just got in, but it's really good. And also we were able to encourage our community members to participate in fundraising. And we've got a virtual carol concert coming up as well. We're going to be getting people involved with too. So in terms of the big stuff for me, the power of peer support came across really strongly during the last year in particular, when all other services other than telephone support pretty much just disappeared. Online was the only support that was left for people. And so communities like ours, and I can see Abby from Mind is here as well. We've been basically standing strong and been keeping people safe and supporting people during a pandemic. So there was a quote I wanted to read just really quickly. Someone who was basically in furlough, weren't able to work, and also at home during lockdown with a parent with dementia. And they were talking about how furlough was a problem for people in lockdown, as a lot of people would be stuck and feeling trapped and not feeling that they're able to do things. And so that's why they joined the community, because at least here there are people who understand. And they said, hang in there, this will end, and we can all look forward to better times when the world is free. And so looking ahead, I think it's business as usual for online support communities like ours. We're going to continue to provide a gold standard service to people, continue to make sure we get the right people working in our teams, make sure we're supporting and protecting people, and bring in the money. So that's it from me. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Serena. That was wonderful. Lots of support and respect for you and your team this year and every year. Thank you for that. Darren, over to you to go next, please.
Thanks, Nancy. Serena, thanks for that. I kind of feel like that was such a good job. It's great to hear there's been some positivity in your community as well. I know it's been really tough for you this year. So hello to everyone that doesn't know me. I'm seeing a few faces I haven't seen for a while, which is really great as well. People like Coral, I know I haven't seen for a little bit, and there's a few other people in there. So my name's Darren Gough, for the people that don't know me. I started my career as the community manager for Martin Lewis's Money Saving Expert, which we built to a couple of million people in the UK. And I've spent the subsequent parts of my career standing on the other side of the fence as a community consultant, helping companies build communities, find and train community managers. I think anything that could be done with community, I've probably done it at some point. I know you can't tell, thanks very much. But it's been, I think this year's been really interesting for community. The poll results are interesting to me anyway. I've seen a real split in the way communities have gone this year. The rush to get onto community, I think, has meant that companies are trying to do in 5 to 10 months what would have taken 5 to 10 years. I think we were heading that way, but it's really moved the barometer forward quite rapidly. I think the danger that's come in that this year is I think companies still have a misunderstanding of what online community actually means. Rob's on the call as well. I've done a lot of work with Standing on Giants this year in terms of their community plans. So Standing on Giants has seen a lot of growth this year. So a lot of brands that have become aware of the power of communities for the first time and what can be done. When we're having those conversations, we still tend to find that what people mean by online community is still very different from what we mean as a profession. And by that, I mean things like social media, things like content marketing. It's not unusual to hear someone that's been pulled into community and sort of given the job because the company hears that community can kind of be a really beneficial thing from the business. So I think this year I've seen a real split in communities that have really struggled to understand how to firstly deal with a pandemic, then add in things like digital workplace, and then also scale up a community manager or community management teams. The other side of that, I think there's now an awareness for online communities in a way that there's perhaps never been before in the wider industry. And that is, for me, is really positive that the questions are now being asked. I think as a sector, I think our job now is to help educate the people that are asking the questions. And whether that's a big brand or whether that's like a local community of, sorry, the dog's just walked in, or whether that's a local community of people that are passionate around, yoga or running, I think there's still a misunderstanding in terms of what it means to be a community manager. And a lot of the other work that I do, I've worked with the NHS, and it's interesting to see Abby from Mind on the call. So one of the things that's really big for us at the moment and will be going forward is how we take care of our community managers better. So in terms of their mental health support, we run, I made the joke at the start about community managers wearing multiple hats, but we do have to do that a lot. And I think there's a pressure that comes onto community managers to have to do a huge amount of things at the same time. Serena mentioned there the challenges around, running a community that runs 24/7. And I think also when we find times of crisis or when we find times of need, we find that influx into our communities is quite often difficult to scale or grow with. So again, it comes back to that education piece. I think in terms of things I think are interesting for the next few years, we're also, so my organisation, Island 23, is also part of the Safety Tech Initiative by DCMS and the government. I think safer tech is really important going forward. And by that, I don't just mean things like more effective moderation, but I think it's how we connect people that build products and services with the people that use products and services. Historically, those things can be disconnected. I've sat in many community pitches where they sent a product manager in to sell their vision of community, and that's not always what we see at the cutting edge of community. I also think education is a really huge, important thing going forward. I'm really passionate about how we build careers for people. So we don't want to be reactive as a community. We don't want community managers to sort of have to pick this stuff up and hope they're doing the right thing. We want to be able to reassure them that there's a methodology, that we can signpost people effectively, that we can actually make them more valuable to the organisations. And then the final thing that I think maybe is an umbrella to all of that is how we actually plug communities into our organisations. Historically, communities, I think, are seen as a sort of orbiting satellite around the edge of the organisation. But for people that work in the industry, I think it's important to say that we think community is the heartbeat. And it's not just how you serve your audiences, it's actually how you support your internal teams. So it's the value you can bring to marketing, to legal, to the senior stakeholder team. There's a huge amount of value that communities can offer across the board. And I think when we talk about digital workplace going forward, for me, that's what we mean is the transition into utilising communities better to give the value of what we're doing more purpose and to give organisations a better outlook on how they're going to scale for the next 5 or 10 years. So hopefully that's a lot of stuff to get through from me. Hopefully that all made sense to everyone. If you've got any questions, just post them up. But I'll pause there and hand back to Nancy, my fellow hat wearer.
Oh, that was a bit of a funny one. No, if there's any questions, do ask them for any of the speakers, because they can answer them while the other speakers are talking. So if Serena or Darren touched a point that you want to explore further, do feel free to use the chat or follow up with any of them directly afterwards. We're a very friendly, giving bunch, as you can hear. Right, next we're going to hear from Michael, I think. Michael, could you share your highs and lows of 2020 with the group?
Okay, I'll give it a go. So yeah, hello, I'm Michael Norton, I'm from Knowledge Hub. So I've been sort of in the KM community world for since about 2005, 2006. Actually got my old boss on here, Steve Dale, so hello Steve, and also my colleague Dimple is here as well. I'm going to be different. I actually got some slides, because when Nancy said let's do some reflections on this, my first thought was, I need to do an after action review. So if anyone knows anything about knowledge management, that's sort of like the standard sort of thing to do when you're reviewing stuff. So I went back down to sort of really simple ideas. If anyone knows what an after action review is, it's around the idea of find out what was supposed to happen, what actually happened, what differences did you make, and what did you learn. So listen to everyone else's experience so far. They've been really positive. Ours was a bit different from what we've done. So as part of our work on Knowledge Hub, we sort of do 3 key bits, myself and Dimple. We run an online facilitators community. And through that, what we try and have is an outline plan of like running polls, questions, webinars, walkthroughs, etc. as part of it, just to try and keep the community going, give them skills, experience, as if a lot of them are brand new to work in this digital environment, and actually understanding the whole concept of how they gather a community together online. So we do a lot of work on that anyway. We have a whole range of resources to support people around the area, and also because they're all public sector is quite a unique sort of area. The idea of doing digital environments and working together across it is always a bit slow to pick up. We also have a support team, which again, me and Dimple run. It's just 2 of us, where we get new groups up and running. We have to close groups down. We try and reinvigorate groups. We send out reminders to people as well. So we have a whole range of different things that we try and do for all the new groups and the ones that are going through different stages of their life cycle. And then as a platform that we host as well, we then build case studies, we do help guides, how to tech guides. So we have a whole range of different sort of like, that was our plan for the whole year. So that all got scuppered a little bit when this idea of COVID, big wrecking ball come flying through into the public sector. And if anyone's worked in the public sector before, transformation takes ages in the public sector. We still, it wasn't that long ago, people using IE6. So in some of the NHS departments are still using very old browsers. So trying to get them to actually rapidly change to sort of digital has been a bit of a struggle for us. But at this point, it made a massive difference. The whole COVID-19 coming in, everyone was moving to different teams, etc. as we were going forward. And it was a bit of a struggle for a lot of the organisations we were working with. Another key thing that happened to us, which was opposite to everyone else, everyone's been sort of thriving, we went the opposite way. So we actually went down. So when lockdown started, we started seeing a rapid decline of our members sort of not being available to it. There's a whole range of different reasons behind that. Mainly it's because some were furloughed, organisations were getting the rapid change with the teams or Google or trying to work out how they're going to deal with COVID-19. With some groups that had been established really rapidly. We had about 19, 20 specific groups set up around COVID-19 where legislation was coming out at 4 o'clock and they were expected to deliver it by 5. So communities were coming together to actually deal with that rapidly, and so growing there. But lucky enough, as lockdown started to end, we did start to bounce back. Then weirdly enough, we had a heat wave around August time, so everyone went on holiday, so we lost all our members. We're a bit unusual, right? I know a lot of everyone else is like 24/7. Our platform pretty much runs 9 to 5, so we're quite lucky in that way. If you're at work, then you use it. If you're not at work, you don't. That seems to be the way our platform sort of works. And since then, it's been growing back up again. It's actually come back a lot stronger. So if anyone's in the football and Peter Crouch podcast, you know what I mean by that. So that was what happened to us over that period of time. So how did we actually deal with it? So we actually switched some of the things we started doing. So we went down the route of like community coffee, like approaches with one-to-one stuff, a lot more self-service as well. We did a lot of stuff around trying to build the COVID response groups, try to support them as best we can, linking them up with each other, because different local authorities and central government are doing different bits of work. We say, oh, do you know this group's also doing this? You might want to go and talk to them as well. Did a lot of one-to-one support with people having to go from, we used to have face-to-face meetings. We now got to do it online. We don't know how to do it. So we did lots of work with individuals, just explaining how they could do it, different ideas. They can go around getting their groups together, because for them it's a revolution. They've never done this before. But we've been doing it for a number of years. So we were explaining how they could do it, what tools, techniques they can use, how they run their meetings, how they do different parts. Some of our biggest discussions were around moving your meetings online. And there were lots of different organisations were sharing how they were doing it and how they were dealing with it as well. And from that, really, I come up with this idea of the buzzword bingo. I mean, how many of these have you seen? Sorry about the Wi-Fi. Can anyone see my screen? We mentioned about the pets, Darren's dog in the background. Let me share my screen seems to be a sort of a common one that everyone hears about. I can hear you but not see you. And these are all the things that everyone was going through. And me and Nancy was talking about the idea of the homeschooling, that we technically classed ourselves as like the equivalent of smokers. We had to pop out every 5 minutes to see if our kids haven't destroyed the house. So imagine all these distractions that were going on in your organisation. That was a lot of people in the public sector. That was their life at that particular moment. So they were trying to do their best at a particular moment. And I think they've actually picked up a lot of skills and different things as they've gone along. Just to finish up, that during that period of our slowness, we realised that we had to look at the ways we do things around the time and commitment. Before, we used to run sessions on a particular time and a particular day. People would come along to it. We realised we couldn't do that anymore. We didn't know when people were going to be available. So we tried to do more one-to-one. We did a lot of stuff without realising we were doing it around the upskilling of not only how to run a community, but all the how to use your teams, how to use Zoom, how to run meetings, which none of them have ever really done before. We did a lot of stuff around the on-demand and the urgency. So we get a message saying, can you set up a new community for us in the next 20 minutes? And we'd have to do that and then try and arrange a call with them, show them how to set it up, what they need to do, how to build it, things to think about. Because as you mentioned, the idea of we need a community on something, but a lot of them didn't know what they really were doing. So we had to take them back the back step to say, let's start planning it. Who's your audience? Who you want to get involved? What's the purpose? And for a lot of them, it's like they got told to do it. And I think after a while, we started to get through the message that you need to really plan this and prepare to make it work. And the signposting was probably one of the biggest bits we've learned from. It's about pointing different people to different places. We've got 2,500 communities on our platform. So a lot of people doing crossover work, doing similar work. We say, go and speak to these guys. They're doing some good work here. Go and have a chat with these people, because you're all doing similar work in different parts of the UK. So that's our learning part for it. So we were a bit unusual. We went down a little bit, but we bounced back. And I think that's actually been a good thing for us.
Thank you, Michael. Like the changing format as well. I think I'm going to copy you in that. There's a couple of questions, so I don't know if the other speakers want to have a look at them in the chat for me. But Michelle, if you'd like to go next, it'd be great to hear how you and your Finimize community has gone this year.
Yeah, I mean, I do something a little bit different to you guys. So I'm the global community lead at Finimize. And for those of you who don't know Finimize, we're a London-based fintech startup, and we educate people about investing. We have 1 million subscribers on our newsletter database. And last year we launched our app. So lots of things happening. And my role is focused on building that community so people can achieve that goal together, because learning investing and educating yourself is a lot more better and smarter when you do it together. And just for context, I thought I'd roll into kind of where we were pre-COVID before I talk about where we're going next. But pre-COVID, in about a year, we built a really highly engaged offline community. We had 10,000 attendees, attending Finimize meetups that were run by our community members across 35 different countries. And our main focus was to achieve, volume and scale. And as an offline community, I'm sure you all have this experience. It's really easy to prove that things are working. So when we had, 200 people meeting up together on a Thursday night to learn about finance, and not to see, Ed Sheeran or see Tottenham play, we could prove that we were doing something really special through those offline interactions. And then COVID, you know, like for many businesses, you know, we had to pivot virtually, and it was a huge decision as well for us. During a pandemic, we decided to monetize our community. So as you do, so we experimented with like monetizing events through ticketing, and as well as I grew my community host team that were running those events. Also, second part, during COVID, we also launched WhatsApp private groups where our members could interact with each other on a daily basis and learn together. That was something special. And then obviously post-COVID, we're in this post-COVID world where Zoom fatigue exists, just like those buzzwords you showed, Michael. And yeah, millions of people have gotten up to speed with hosting virtual events. So we're not the only ones who, you know, being able to engage our community that way anymore. So we found that if you're not doing something different, then, you know, we're not going to be able to achieve a high volume of people coming together, let alone being able to, you know, generate revenue from it. So we understand that now. And the good news is, from all those kind of experiments that we ran during COVID and lockdown, that we do know now that a high quality of community interactions is so much more valuable, and that's so much better than what we were trying to achieve pre-COVID, which was the volume and scale. So yeah, that is kind of like a little summary of that, what happened. So the lows is, you know, we focused on monetizing during a time that, you know, high quality community interaction was needed for most people. Also lows, I'm sure like many of you, I experienced burnout during COVID, and I was a one-woman team for about half a year, just because everyone was on furlough from my team. So yeah, focusing on mental health was a huge thing for me. And then highs, so the good things, there's always good things, thank goodness. We tripled the amount of attendees that we had this year. So we had 10,000 people joining our offline events last year, and now we've had almost 30,000 people join our virtual events. So that's really big for us. And then recently, I also hosted our first virtual summit, and also managed to do that on zero budget. Win.
With
and
5 weeks notice, right?
Yeah, 5 weeks notice and not a lot of sleep. And then looking forward, so yeah, as I said, you know, we changed our strategy 3 times. So we now understand so much more about what our community want, and we still believe in the power of community, and it works. And we want to be able to enable those, you know, really insightful conversations and help our users unlock, you know, crowdsourced knowledge that exists between each other. So that's going to be really big for us. And recently I've been reading more about community gardens. I think that's a really interesting term to use, and that's exactly what we want to build for our community moving forward. So yeah, that's a wrap up from me.
Wow. Well done. And I probably didn't thank Michael enough. I'm sorry about that. I was too eager to move on, but well done, Michelle. To monetize a community anytime, let alone doing this year, is incredible. So very, very well done. I'm sure we'll all agree.
We need a session just on Michelle, don't we? How to monetize a community. I think that's got a separate session for Michelle.
I think so, don't you? Like, that's going to be a session next year, I reckon. Right, I'm going to go next, and then we're going to break out. So start thinking about your highs and lows from your communities to share with your small groups. So I'm Nancy Kinder. I'm an independent coach and trainer for communities. One of the privileges I've had this year is to coach Maria Hamilton. Some of you may have met her at previous KCN or CMX workshops. Sadly, she couldn't join us today, but I'm sure she'll be back next year sharing this in its entirety, because it's a great journey, what she's achieved. So this Scottish tech army didn't exist before the pandemic. A couple of founders realised there was a lot of people in the tech industry that were being furloughed, didn't have opportunities to go to, and there was an opportunity to team them up with projects that they needed from the Scottish Government, all volunteers, but by doing this, people got work and maybe led to paid work. So it was really maximising the opportunity of people that were displaced or furloughed during that time in March. So you can go and have a look at it. It's now, in those few months, delivered 176 projects, one of them being a COVID dashboard, which I can show you in a second. They've got over 1,200 volunteers, and they do a mixture of collaborating on projects, sharing knowledge, training, upskilling people, all sorts of things, just really building a really strong technical community. Their objectives are, and I'm going to read them here, is to connect the Scottish technical community, to deliver fast and quality projects, and accelerate learning and upskilling across the sector. So you may wonder why all these volunteers want to give up their time, but often they're all, they're so forthcoming because they know it's going to lead to something, even if on that actual project they don't know specifically. So it's fantastic that they've delivered that. This is an example of what they've delivered. You've all been seeing these coming up on your different dashboards wherever you are that you live, but the Scottish one was developed by the Scottish Tech Army, and I'm particularly proud of that. With this though, there's been some lows, that scaling that fast, not having a proper team or relationships in place, they never met face to face, all of those things meant communication and transparency was hard at times, and how to look after all the volunteers in a timely manner, because you grow at that scale, it's, you know, the onboarding wasn't there, the training, so all of that Maria had to coordinate and support. The growths are clear, you know, the highs, what they've achieved together, the projects and these quality opportunities. So they're noticing now a bit of a downturn in activity on the platform, only because these people are now doing proper jobs. You know, they've gone from being furloughed or displaced to now finding paid employment. So it's absolutely fine that we've gone through that curve. What they're trying to do now, focusing and looking ahead for next year, is get proper funding and secure this as a long-term community, volunteering and project sector. I'm not sure exactly where they are today, but there's loads of opportunities that are being explored and sort of cementing this for an opportunity going forward. I'm really proud of what Maria's done. She's got enlisted champions, super members, loads of things like that to help her manage that scale, and yeah, just delivered really great outputs. And as I say, I hope she'll be back next year and share with you the whole journey and what happens next. So that was my little bit, because I felt that was, I've been involved in lots of communities, but that one really, with volunteers, to have achieved so much is incredible. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. Okay, how are we all doing? I'm sure there's some questions in the chat, but what I propose we do is I chuck you all in the breakout rooms, you meet 2 or 3 other people and share your highs and lows over the next 10 to 15 minutes. And then we'll come back at 10 to and share what we learnt in our groups and finish on, you know, finish on a great high. Does that sound okay? So I hope this is going to work. I hope everyone's in a room that's going to work for them. Well, bear with me 1 second. It should be fair. If you drop out now, just come back and we will get you back in a room. So I'm going to open all the rooms and see you in 15 minutes. Take care.
Thanks, Nancy.
Welcome back, everyone. In the last few minutes, shall we hear from the speakers what you took away? And feel free to add in anything on the chat, but rather than having 30 odd people off mute, it might be easier for a summary. And Serena, do you want to, at the end, share next month's event?
Absolutely.
Do you want to go first, Serena, as you're there?
Great. Okay, so I'm going to slip in a plug for next month's event right from the start. So if you don't know, next year the theme for Community Manager Advancement Day is resilience. And so I think we can all agree, quite a useful theme. So we're actually going to be running an event on the topic of resilience for you guys. So it's going to be a 90-minute workshop. It's on the 28th of January at 2 p.m. British time. So yes, it'll be a really great opportunity to hear from some expert panelists around resilience and have an opportunity to talk and build our own resilience toolkit. So it's on events.cmxhub.com/London. So I've got my plug out of the way. In terms of some things we've seen, just rapid thoughts from us: growth, well-being of people under pressure, rapidly scaling to virtual, going to suddenly remote, having a great opportunity to go forward with virtual and remote service delivery, including community. The great challenge and opportunity of transitioning careers more into this kind of collaborative community space. And also, just a thought from me, if we've seen a lot of communities being built quickly, now is the chance that we need to scale, maintain and improve them. So now begins the long game. Great, thanks.
Thank you, Serena. Michael, would you like to go next?
Yeah, well, we've quickly talked about people struggling, but also there's been a big opportunity for people at finding new audiences, which I've never seen before, but they've actually had a chance to meet online. A lot of stuff we sort of talked about was around like the dislocation of new people coming into organisations, and also managers dealing with this as well, because a lot of them have never done with dealing with remote workers and potential blended workers. So it's not only, I know Darren's, I know the stuff around the people side, but how much has been done to support the managers on how to deal with this, and what can we learn as we've been working remotely to push that up to the management so they can learn as well. And I talked about the idea of a promotion to incompetence, that a lot of people become managers without management skills. So how do we actually give them the skills to be able to manage remotely and manage blended teams in the future? So they've got the self-care for the staff around them as well. And also we talked about Zoom fatigue, back-to-back meetings, and I think a lot of people love their own voice. Sorry for me talking too much. You know, people need a break. Only have a meeting when there's actually a need for a meeting. You can probably do a lot of it by a quick email. So that was one of the big things that we mentioned as well. So, and how do we put this learning back into place? How do we put all our stuff we've learned over the last 6 months into our communities, into our ways of working, into our management structures, how we do work in the future?
Great, thank you. Darren, could you go next, please?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount more to add. I mean, the themes that are coming out are pretty consistent with our session. One thing we did touch on is not just the fatigue of using like another call, but actually just the variety of technology platforms that are, so that cognitive dissonance of like taking on, I now need to use Teams, I need to use Zoom, and everyone's got a different version of it. And I think also as we move forward next year, there'll be a huge amount of new platforms or iterations that come out. That's quite overwhelming for a lot of people. And we also touched on, you know, especially for some of our members of society, so perhaps some of the elderly members of society, and for some of the sectors of society that don't have access to technology. So it's okay that we embrace this digital world, and we talked about how difficult this would have been 10 to 15 years ago. But actually also we need to make sure we are making sure that people have the right access. They're actually being taught how to use the tools properly. You know, it's okay to say everything's moved to online, but for a lot of people, that's a new and scary world, and they don't also have the equipment to do it. So that really came out of that for me as well. But, you know, there were some positives around, you know, adoption, some rethinking of strategy, some sort of sense of maybe bringing people together. So rather than having like one entry point where you then get access to a load of communities afterwards. So we covered a fair variety of ground. I think the themes were consistent with the other two sessions that I've heard so far, and I suspect from Michelle's as well.
Thank you, Darren. Judy, are you happy to share from your group, please?
Certainly, yeah. Some things in common with what's been said already. We were all very positive, actually. I don't think any of us had any really unpleasant experiences, but we are aware that some people have. But we had a theme going on, which emerged quite early on, which is the disappearance of boundaries. So boundaries between work and personal home life, geographical boundaries doesn't matter anymore. You can, you can meet somebody that's halfway around the world because you don't have to travel, and everybody's on a level playing field. And the disappearance of some of the barriers to innovation, because there's been massive innovation in thinking, in technology, in just doing things differently. And so, yeah, we thought lots of positives of barriers and boundaries disappearing.
Thank you, Judy. And Debbie, would you like to go? Would you like to share from your group, or were you together with Judy? I can't remember. I'm just looking at Debbie. Are you happy to share a couple of things?
Yeah, no, I wasn't with Judy, but I was with Abby and Shami. It was just the three of us. Yeah, we were just chatting about the role of community manager, how that this year has certainly highlighted up the diversity of what we do, and all the touch points that we have, and that we definitely can't be put into one particular area because we sort of touch so many different places. And we talked a little bit about our own environments. Abby was at Mind, and just sort of where we're working and what we're working on. It was just a general chat, really. We didn't go into great detail on anything. We were just having a really nice natter.
I hope that's the same for everyone, that you'll have a nice natter. And it's so positive this time, which is great, because I think when we put it together, we were like, oh, well, we're all going to have a bit of a moan. But and Michelle, you and I, we were in a room together, but we had a good conversation. I think there's a mixture of people with experience in this area, so it's great to have new and long-standing members on the call today. There's definitely, fear of like, how do we grow and expand our roles and opportunities? And I encourage everyone to join both the Slack group, and there's lots of job opportunities there for CMX, and also with the KCN group. The 5 elements from Standing on Giants last time to the webinars that have been pre-recorded. If you're struggling with any of these things, and don't do it alone. Someone's probably done it in some guise or other. So if you can't see anything you're looking for, just ask in either of those places too, because I think we're all people, as we said last time, and we want to help. So do lean on this group if you need anything. Michelle, was there anything else from our group that I've missed, or?
You covered it. Yeah.
Great.
It's good.
So I suppose all there is to say is well done. You've made it to nearly the end of 2020, one of the most difficult years of all time, and your communities are thriving and you're positive. So I think that deserves a massive round of applause to everyone in this space, and join the call today. And and join us next year. And we look forward to being part of all your journeys and hearing how you're getting on in the next year.
Thank you, Nancy. Happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas, and thank you,
everyone.
speakers, for all sharing your experiences. Darren, Michael, Michelle, Serena, and thank you everyone for joining.
Everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Do keep in touch with each other.
Bye. Have a great
Bye.
Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy
Take care,
holidays.
everyone.
Bye bye.